Thank you. It's very nice to be here this morning and for the whole day. And I went to France in 1980, sent out by the church in Helensburgh, and married Brigitte, who's a French, I nearly said a French girl. Of course, she is a French girl. She was a French girl. And Brigitte was converted when she was at high school through the witness of the daughter of an Echoes International missionary. So when you pray for missionaries, please pray for the witness of their children when they're at school, if they are converted, or please pray they'll get converted. Ministry in France, over 40 years. Now, some mission specialists divide one's missionary career into 3 categories. Up to the age of 30, you're learning. From 30 to 50 or to 55, you're doing. And after you're 55, when you're nearly retired, you're training. Now, for the last few years, we've been in the 3rd category. We're still learning, although we're over 30. We're still doing, although we're over 55. But we're training. And we've been looking for Timothys, masculine and feminine, over the last few years, and many Timothys have contacted us wanting to be trained in different areas. So over the last 10 years, one of our main ministries has been training leaders or future leaders in the French church. And this has been a very fulfilling, a very busy, and a very worthwhile ministry. I was spoken to a few years ago by a verse in 2 Chronicles where we read of the death of King Joas. And we read, Joas died without being missed. And I realized, well, I don't want to die without at least one person missing me. Someone whose life I've been able to feed into. And talking of dying, we prefer Mark Twain's advice. He said, live in such a way that even the undertaker will regret that you have died. So, we don't think of undertakers, we don't think of dying, but we want to live in such a way that we can leave some kind of legacy behind us. Which means that we spend a lot of time, either me with an elder, or Brigitte and I with an elder and his wife, or with a group of elders, and we always ask that their wives are also present if the elders are married, and we spend time with them, going through different subjects, either on a one-to-one or a couple-to-couple level, or Brigitte and I with a group of elders in different churches. And we organize workshops for elders and for church leaders. And this is a list of some of the subjects that we go through, that they've asked us to go through, or that we felt we should tackle with them. Coping with criticism as a church leader. Now, in France, the national sport is not rugby or football. It could be tax evasion, but it's criticism. And many church elders, many missionaries leave the mission field. Many church elders resign and leave the church just because they're criticized week after week after week. So we explain, how to cope with criticism. Another subject is how, when, and why should we initiate change in the local church? That's a hot potato. Change? Is that part of our vocabulary? So we explain, how, when, and why should we initiate change in our local church? Another subject is, how do you organize a funeral service? In our churches in France, we have a lot of young elders, 30, 35, 40 years old, who've become elders. They've never had to bury anyone. So we go through a 4-hour workshop on explaining, what does it mean to bury someone? How do you do about it? How do you look after the family that is bereaved? What kind of contact do you have with the police, with the authorities, with the funeral director? What kind of ceremony should you organize? Should you preach on hellfire for 45 minutes, for an hour? What kind of sermon should you preach? All kinds of practical down-to-earth subjects. Another subject that we go through is time management, how to organize one's time. The potential dangers of eldership, or risks of being an elder, or of being an elder's wife. Leadership according to the Apostle Paul. Leadership according to Nehemiah. Leadership according to the prophet Daniel. Leadership according to Sir Alex Ferguson. He's not a theological author, of course, but I've read 3 of his 4 autobiographies. And in his autobiographies, he gives an awful lot of counsel and advice concerning leadership. And I wrote to him a few years ago to thank him for his books and to say that we're implementing a lot of his advice in French churches. How to recognize and to avoid burnout. A real subject. How to cope with stress. When doing too much is just too much. We meet too many elders, too many church leaders who are going through or are burned out. And their get up and go has got up and well, we used to say has got up and went, but has got up and disappeared. And we try to help and coach and encourage these people. How to have a shepherd's heart. It's one thing being an elder, but elders are shepherds. Shepherds of sheep. And as shepherds, of course, we encourage fellow elders to spend time with the sheep. A Sunday morning, is it enough? Spend time during the week visiting, feeding the sheep, caring for sheep, protecting them from the different dangers. Another seminar that we organize is how to organize and how to chair an elders' meeting. Now, I'm sure in Scotland it's not the same, but in France, many elders say to us, we know what time the elders' meeting begins, but we don't know what day it will finish. Because often they end up after midnight. And we feel that an elders' meeting that lasts for 5 hours, you can do better. So we try and encourage people. Another theme that we go through is how to motivate church members. How to demotivate church members. It's easier to demotivate than to motivate. Another subject is, and this may shock some of you, the kind of leaders God does not want in our churches. We go through a list of 25 categories of elders that exist that God does not want in our church. I can explain that more in detail if you want to invite us to your church or to see us at some other time. But all this is just to say, people need, these elders' wives need encouragement, need someone to speak to who will have a listening ear and a non-judgmental attitude. I could give you more subjects that we cover. How to make decisions. There's a time to talk, a time to think, a time to pray, and a time to decide. But some people like talking, they like praying, they like thinking, but they don't like to make decisions. And we go through a seminar with people to help them to make the right decisions. So, all different kinds of themes for all different kinds of elders. Because in our churches in France, we have basically 4 types of elders. We will have elders who, what we call, or some specialists in leadership call, elders who are promoters. They have 20 ideas to the dozen. And they have all kinds of ideas. They throw out idea after idea after idea. It's good having at least one promoter on an eldership team. But sometimes the promoters have difficulty in listening to other people's ideas. It's good having ideas, but you must listen to other people's ideas. A second category of elder are supporters. They're willing to support any idea. They're kind of yes men. Okay, that's great. But sometimes a supporter has difficulty in thinking and in discerning what issues are really about. A third kind is the analyst. This kind of elder asks question after question after question after question. It's good to ask questions, but sometimes you have to stop asking questions and accept the answers. And this kind of elder, once a decision is made, after 5 hours of discussion, after the meeting, he will write to the other elders with more questions to put into doubt the decision that was made. This kind of elder has difficulty in accepting a decision when a decision has been made. And the other kind of elder is an elder who is a controller. He wants to control everything. He has difficulty in living by faith. He wants to know all the ins and outs of everything before making a decision. And he wants to, a kind of control freak. And this kind of elder has difficulty in stepping out by faith and in saying, the Lord will lead, the Lord will provide. This kind of elder walks by sight and not by faith. Whereas Paul says in 2 Corinthians, we should walk by faith and not by sight. So that's kind of some of the situations that we've been in and that we are in on a regular basis. Because not 1 week goes by without elders in some churches elsewhere in France or locally in the city of Lyon, where we work, without elders phoning us, contacting us, and wanting help or advice in some kind of way. A few years ago, it was the 14th of July, Bastille Day, a bank holiday in France. At 9:45 in the evening, we were walking through we were out for a walk, and my wife's phone rang. Now, nobody in France phones anyone after 9 o'clock in the evening. That is just, nobody does it. So, it was a number from France, so she answered. I was the elder of a church in Paris, looking for me. So, Brigitte gave me her phone, and this elder said basically, in our church, there are 2 elders, me and another. Now, we haven't spoken to each other for 9 months. And we're there every Sunday morning. We're at the Bible study. Our wives have difficulty in speaking to each other. Could you please come and help us? I wanted to say, no, I'm too busy. But we booked up 3 days to spend with them, to help them to see what was going on, what was wrong, who should ask forgiveness for what and to whom. Another situation was when another elder of another church phoned us and said, listen, I need to speak to someone because a fellow elder has an unhealthy relationship with a married lady in the church. Seeds of adultery. Can you please help us? Another elder phoned us to say, a member in our church has accused an older man in the church, who is her uncle, of sexual abuse when she was a child. It's all coming out now that she's an adult. What should I do? Real life situations. Elders need people to talk to. Sometimes their morale is rock bottom. And we spend a lot of time listening and praying. We don't have answers, all the answers. But people appreciate having a listening ear. And that we will not repeat what they tell us. They know that. And they know that we can pray that day with them. And we will pray regularly for them afterwards. People need a listening ear. Another part of our ministry is camp ministry. We're involved in a camp in Brittany. This camp is owned by different churches in the country. And I'm a member of the board of this camp. And this camp is, there are buildings, there are wooden chalets, there are tents, there are caravans. And it's open all year round. Churches will go there for a weekend away. There are special weekends for children, for teenagers, for students. And also during the summer, there are special camps which last for 2 weeks. A children's camp would last for 2 weeks in France. And over the winter months, there's a camp for people who like to walk, another camp for people who like to hike, because walking and hiking is not the same thing, I've been told. There's another camp called Keep Fit. Now, I've been at that camp a few times, and I think we should rebaptize it and call it Get Fit instead of Keep Fit. And there's a camp for the elderly. I've been at that a few times as well as speaker. And also, Brigitte initiated a new camp last year for people who like painting and drawing. And an art teacher came for a week on a voluntary basis. We had 10 people, and just a time of painting, going out to the seaside, to the countryside. And at all of these camps, there's a time of Bible teaching. And that has been one of my main roles over the last few years, going up to this camp as a week for Bible teaching. Every summer, both of us are involved in a fortnightly family camp, where the ages are from 0 to 95 years old. Up to 200 people can come to this camp. And Brigitte and I are involved as counsellors, and Brigitte is also responsible for the laundry. Now, if you want to know what Brigitte does with the laundry, you need to ask her about it. It's a precious ministry, doing laundry at a family camp. Now, at this family camp, every morning there's a time of Bible teaching for adults and for children and youngsters and teenagers. And every evening there's every second evening there's a workshop of different subjects. So we make a list of subjects that we can go through in workshops. I'll give you, for example, some of the subjects we go through. Depression. What does the Bible say about Mary, the Lord's mother? Because in France, the 15th of August is a bank holiday, because that day, the Roman Catholic Church say that Mary went up to heaven without dying. And a lot of people believe that. So what does the Bible really say about Mary? Other subject is how to witness to non-believers, worship and music in the local church, creation and evolution, transgenderism, abortion, homosexuality, euthanasia, all kinds of practical subjects, either biblical, theological, ethical, practical subjects. And people attend these seminars, and we feel it's important to teach and to let people know what the Bible says about all of these subjects. It's important to teach practically what the Bible says to believers, to men and to women who love the Lord. Let me conclude. Please pray for us. We need prayer. We only have 24 hours in the day, as you do, and we need to organize ourselves and cope with sometimes fatigue. What is fatigue in English? Tiredness, yeah? Stress, and different things. And please pray for us. And please pray that we'll still have our vision and our enthusiasm after 42 years for me, and we've been married for 38 years, nearly 39 years. Is that right? Yes, that's okay. I'm just checking. I don't want to have an argument after the meeting. We have been inspired by what President Kennedy said in his inaugural speech in 1962, I think it was. He quoted George Bernard Shaw, who said this: "Some people look around and ask themselves, why? Whereas others look ahead and say to themselves, why not?" I should repeat that 3 or 4 times for you to understand. But just having a vision, okay, you can say, why is this going on? But you can say, well, why not? The Lord is there. He's in control. He will lead. He will guide. Another subject for prayer is that we will always have, that we will not only have a front door mentality, but we'll have a back door syndrome. Now, what does that mean? That means it's good seeing people coming into our church. Wonderful. They come through the front door. There are new people. But now and again we realize, so-and-so hasn't been out for 3 months, 4 months. And people disappear out the back door. And you don't realize it until, we haven't seen them for a week, a month, a year. Where are they? And when you phone, they don't answer the phone. When you write, they don't write back. a front door mentality, but we mustn't forget the back door. Another subject for prayer is that we can avoid the PLM attitude. Do you know what the PLM attitude is? Pity little me. Just feeling sorry for oneself. Nobody loves me. I think I'll go and eat some worms. Do you know that wee song? And feeling sorry for ourselves is a tactic of the enemy, and we mustn't feel sorry for ourselves. Otherwise, we just will stay in bed all day. And we also have to remember that in Matthew chapter 5, there are the Beatitudes, putting the accent on the be attitudes, not the do attitudes. It's one thing to do things for the Lord, but the Lord wants us to be something for him. A few years ago, somebody said to me, David, it's not your aptitude, but rather your attitude that will determine your altitude. You get that? We've got aptitudes, we've all got gifts and talents, but what is our attitude? And that will determine where we're going for the Lord, with the Lord. And may the Lord also help us to continue to pray for conversions, that those who get converted will become disciples, that those who are disciples will become workers, and that some of the workers will become leaders. Conversions, disciples, workers, and leaders. And also, we need to stay optimistic. I suppose you know that Churchill, Sir Winston Churchill, said that there's a difference between an optimist and a pessimist. An optimist sees an opportunity in every difficulty. A pessimist sees a difficulty in every opportunity. And we want to be optimist. Realist, but optimist. A few years ago, I realized that a lot of French people, even French Christians, have a special blood in their body. You know, there are different kinds of blood groups. And a lot of French people, Christians included, unfortunately, their blood group is B negative. Now, I forget what my blood group is. I know my blood's blue. In fact, it seems to be blue, but I think I'm an A. But whatever our blood group is, we don't want to be B negative. We want to be B positive. So please pray that we will be positive. And if we're positive, if you're positive in what you're doing for the Lord, the work will go on. God will be glorified. And that's what we want. Not glory to us, but glory to the Lord. Psalm 115, verse 1. Not to us, but to you, the glory. Thank you very much for listening.